Hi, and you're very welcome to the Leitrim GAA podcast here on finalwhistle.ie, of course, in association with Leitrim GAA. My name is Breifne Earley, and I'm joined, as usual, by one of my co-hosts. This week, it is the turn of Aidan Rooney. Aidan, you're very welcome back.
Thanks, Breifne. Great to be here.
Now, you've been with us every second week rather than third for the last little while because, I suppose, one of your number, Colin Regan, has been multiplying the world's population, or at least increasing it by one. We won't say multiplying it just yet. Multiplying his own house, maybe. But he will be back with us next week in the normal rotation again. But you're back with us today. It's kind of apt because I suppose the main game of this weekend, as well as a Junior B Championship final from last season that we will talk about in due course, is the Leitrim clash with Sligo. Yourself, a former Leitrim player, also a Sligo minor manager, and it is at minor level that we face Sligo in Marketfitz Park on Friday evening. We'll be talking to Adrian Dockery, the Leitrim manager, in a couple of minutes on the show. But your own thoughts ahead of the game, Aidan. Leitrim facing off against Sligo, a game that Leitrim can win perhaps. We haven't won a game all year, hurling or football at any level at intercounty. At any adult level, at least, this is probably our biggest win of the season if we can pull it off on Friday night. Do you think it's possible?
I do, yeah, because the one thing about minor grade, and particularly now that they've brought it down by another year, is there's very little difference between the teams, or should be no difference between the teams. Because you're dealing with the same age of kid, they're all in school. S&C hasn't taken over their lives. It's a very, very raw age group, and a very, very good age group to be involved in. As I learned over my experience and my time involved in it, very enjoyable seeing kids develop. Adrian Dockery and his group. I'd be very disappointed if it's not a very evenly balanced game in the Marketfitz Park on Friday night. Now, the talk on the street down here among the Sligo lads is pretty normal conversation in Sligo as regards we're going to beat Leitrim, and there's a confidence level down here that they think they have a good team again. That's probably been spurred on by the fact that whoever wins Friday night's into a Connacht Final, and that's a huge carrot for these lads, and a huge carrot. But I suppose the only downside I'd see to it is that the preparation time has been horribly hampered. Over the longer term, over the year preceding this championship, that lads, the time together and all that stuff that these young lads gain at minor football, they've been kind of robbed of it, or a lot of it, and that's my only concern for the long-term benefits of the minor championship this year, is that the lads will have missed out on so much of that kind of bonding time. And we all look back on our time playing football, and you kind of remember those years specifically from 16, 17, 18, is where you made all your friends that have stuck with you through all your football years. That's where you met them first, and that kind of time has been very hampered for them, which I suppose has been the same for everybody, really. So, to me, Breifne, the game is balanced. I know the Sligo lads, I know some of the Leitrim lads. To be fair, because they're the North Leitrim lads, but I know the Sligo lads. At least the younger part of the panel, they're very, very good. There's no question. They're quality outfit. Paul Henry, the manager, and the management team with him have put in a lot of work down here as regards. Plus I know Adrian Dockery would have done the same thing in Leitrim. So, it's the most balanced grade of all. And I know we've seen some tankings in championships this year at all grades, including minor. But there's nothing in Leitrim and Sligo ever. It's very, very evenly balanced, and to call it either way would be the fact that Sligo are at home maybe gives them a slight edge in the game as regards to favoritism. But Leitrim, I've no doubt will be going up there with aspirations. I commentated on the game. They're back a couple of years ago, and Sligo were strong favourites for that campaign. And Leitrim came up and should have taken the game from them, But that's kind of the way it should be at minor level, and I don't see Friday night being any different to that.
Yeah, of course, COVID, may have a hand in what happens over the next 24 hours or so to that game from the time we're actually recording this. I know one or two of the minor lads have covered themselves in bubble wrap and haven't left the house for the last week, so they wouldn't be in close contact with anybody, so that no matter what happened, it was in their control, particularly with COVID regulations over the course of the next few days ahead of that championship clash. Of course, it's not all about this weekend coming. We do take a look back at last weekend, and there was two big games in the county played over the weekend, and they were the meeting of Annaduff and Gortletteragh in the intermediate final from last year, which of course Gortletteragh won. That's not a secret. That's been well out there for the last week or so. We're going to hear from some of the main players in that game. Jack Heslin will be talking to our reporter Derek Kelleher later in the show, along with the two managers, John Maguire and Joe Cox of Annaduff. My mind went blank there for a second. How could I forget Joe Cox? And then, of course, the intermediate, the last place in the intermediate championship was given to Aughavas. Not given, they earned it on the field of play. They played Cloone, their neighbours, in the Junior A final, the Vistamed Junior A final from last season. Also, Fintan McBrien will be chatting to us in that particular game. We'll also hear from Seamus Sweeney, top scorer, man of the match in the final, as well as the beaten manager Enda McGann of Cloone. They'll be talking to us later in the programme. But first, before we get into that, Aidan, I do want to tell you about this. I know you've seen our little video, our promo video already, but we are launching our souvenir programme for this year's club championship. Now, it's 196-page book, which will accompany every single first team in the county in the adult competitions this year, male and female. So whether you're playing junior ladies football this year or senior men's football, there you are featured in our club championship programme. We've done it here on finalwhistle.ie in conjunction with Leitrim GAA, of course, our brand from the last couple of seasons, and with the buy-in of both the LGFA in Leitrim and the GAA in Leitrim. Thank you very much to the officers of those for their support over the last couple of weeks, and of course the clubs who helped us put it all together. The book will be out and available for you for the first round of the Senior Football Championship in just 8 days' time. Very, very exciting times for all of us here. You can, of course, order your copy now. It's €15, and you can get it on finalwhistle.ie. And just so you get a bit of an idea of what exactly is involved, here's our promotional video for that particular publication. Well, there you have it, and we would absolutely love your support. We know you'll be as happy as we are with the final product. It goes to print this weekend. It will be on the shelves on that Friday with the first round of the Senior Championship next weekend. Now, in terms of the book, of course, some of the proceeds of that will be fed back to the clubs and to the county boards here in the county. So you're supporting the game as well as our work here at Leitrim Daily and Final Whistle. Now, going back to football, last weekend's Intermediate Football Championship, It's probably been the longest layoff for so many teams in terms of championship. 8 months, 9 months separating the semi-final and the final in that Smith Monumentals Intermediate Football Championship. Derek Kelleher and myself were on live commentary duty on finalwhistle.ie, and after the game, Derek Kelleher caught up with the winning managers, John Maguire, and his, I don't know if he's captain, I don't know if he was captain, he wasn't captain on the night, but Jack Heslin chats to us as well, and we'll also hear from Joe Cox of Annaduff. Here's what they had to say about the game.
Jack Heslin, congratulations on Gortletter's fantastic win today. Give us a little bit about how you're feeling after your man of the match performance.
Oh, thanks very much, Derek. Oh, look, I'm just delighted to get over the line, delighted to get it played and just to win it, get back to senior football, and look, it was a great way to do it too. Yeah, look, I suppose when they say goals win games, it really came true today. How was it? I know that Gortletteragh had tried at the start and we missed a few nice chances, but give us a little bit about your 1 or 2 year goals, how it came about. Yeah, look, I suppose we had the plan going into today. It was just to try to isolate the two boys inside and just get runners off them. And look, I think it worked. I think every goal was a ball in and someone getting off the shoulder, so that was just the plan. Look, it worked today, but could easily have went another way on a different days. Look, we're just delighted to get over the line and get the win, really. Yeah, and as far as from the Gortletteragh players' point of view, league final next weekend, championship the following weekend. There's no such thing as COVID stopping this with the help of God this time. So no, yeah, it's going to be a busy few weeks. Look, as you say, we have a league final next weekend. You don't get in finals every day of the week, so it'd be nice to get another win next weekend. Connacht are going to be strong, they're going well, so any chance to get a bit of silverware, you just want to grab it. So that's really, we'll enjoy the next few days and focus on that and the championship after that then. Very good, yeah. And look, congratulations on your man of the match performance. It's great to get when you get the win and to get something like that, especially coming back after your injury and your procedure. It's great to be back. So look, at the next couple of weeks, what will the lads be planning in regards to your training preparations for a senior championship? Yeah, look, as I said, we'll enjoy the next few days anyway, I'd say. And then I suppose we'll regroup before the league final next weekend. And then senior championship is going to be a tough ask for us. We're in a tough group there, so it's going to really be knuckling down after that, getting back into training, and really, look, you couldn't have a better way to start a year, win the final. So look, it's going to bring us a bit of momentum into the senior championship, and to be honest, can't wait for it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Look, just to put it on record, I think everybody in Gortletteragh, you can see it around the field here, are extremely proud of you and the rest of the lads for a fantastic performance. Annaduff put up a great show, didn't get the goals, and it just ended up too late. But look, at everybody and the whole lot of us here are extremely proud of you, and I hope you enjoy your evening and be safe, and we'll see you in the next week or two. Thanks, Jack. Thanks very much. Cheers. Paul Maguire, congratulations today on Gortletterah's fantastic win. Cheers. Give us a little bit of a feeling there back to everybody that'll be watching this. Yeah, look at it. It was a tense first 15 minutes. It was nip for tuck there. We got a goal. They dragged one back. Within a head at half time by 2 points, wasn't it? So look, I just got the lads in at half time and we chatted and says, look, we could regroup. We were better than what we were. We says we're going to go out and we'll take the 15 minutes at a time then. And lucky enough, lads came out. Stood up and we sort of pulled away in the latter end. Give us one word for Jack Heslin's performance. Super. Yeah. Look at the revenue was super. Jack didn't probably play ball all this year. Got injured early in the year. For a man to come out and I don't know, I scored 2. He scored. I can't remember what he scored, but he scored that. It's his first time to play a competitive game since this time last year. Or earlier last year. So brilliant. But look at every one of them was super. Every one of them from 1 to 15 to the subs that came on. You have to think of the subs that's on the line there as well. The lads didn't get game time. You didn't have them for training and that. You wouldn't win this. They're as big as part as more important than the lads starting 15 lads is there. Do you know what I mean? Okay, and look at I'll jump ahead 2 weeks. Our league final next weekend? League final next weekend, I think. Championship the following weekend? Championship, busy few weeks. Busy few weeks. Looking, I know from all the players, looking forward to back senior championship for Gortletteragh. Means an awful lot to everybody in Gortletteragh to be playing senior championship. Gortletteragh deserved to be senior. Just proved today there, that they were quite capable of being up in senior championship. Haven't thought about it yet. This is our priority, was the intermediate championship. We'll celebrate tonight. We'll back to the grinding stone on Wednesday night again. We have a league final on, I think it's Saturday even, so it is, and the senior championship the following weekend. So we have plenty to work at. So we have. Very good. Well, look, thank you very much, Paul, and the very best of luck to the Gortletteragh crew going forward. Yeah. It was exceptional, and you put in a great effort with the lads. One last thing on Annaduff. How did the lads find it? Because I know that it was from commentating. It was a tough enough game. The goals made the difference. Yeah, the goals made the difference.
when you bang in 4 goals there, you know what I mean, it's going to knock the stuffing out of you, you know. But fairness to Annaduff, they never lay down, they were going ahead right till the final whistle, you know what I mean, and you know, Joe Cox masterclass again today, do you know what I mean, at full forward, and it just goes to show the age just makes any difference at all, do you know what I mean, and but look, it's fair, you know what I mean, Annaduff are thereabouts for the immediate championship next year again.
Yeah, well, look, at the very best of luck in the senior championship and in the league final. Yeah. We're looking forward to all that. So thanks, Paul, and enjoy your evening and the lads. And no doubt we'll see you.
That'll do, no problem. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Cheers. And Joe Cox, Annaduff manager. Look at commiserations today. Gortletteragh came out, scored the goals, they won the game. Look back on the game from your own point of view, maybe.
Yeah. I suppose the goals, as you said, is the main reason why you win games at the end of the day, and to score some really good goals. Like we got opened a couple of times there, and we probably left ourselves a little bit isolated at stages. But it's a big learning curve for our lads. You know, we had a couple of young lads played today, and they've done really, really well. So for us going forward, we were looking at giving them exposure time today. No matter what happened, was the outcome, it was always for the next championship, whatever we were going to be in a couple of weeks' time. So look at Gortletteragh, the best team. There was no point in saying anything else. We could nitpick at different things to the game, but they picked us off at stages, and they knew the time to pick us off. And you have Gallagher, I was just saying to you, like he's an exceptional player, and you have Cahill McBride there. He came back and he just controlled. You know, they have that air, bit about them. Like we had Ray, I suppose, and Sean McNabola on the other side had done really, really well as well. But if you concede 4 goals, you're not going to win a game. It's as simple as that. It's very hard. It's very, very hard to concede or to win a game. Like so.
Well, Aidan, you didn't really get much opportunity to play in intermediate championships yourself over the years during your playing days. How important is it for a club like Gortletteragh, though, to be back playing senior football at this stage of, I suppose, some of those young lads' careers?
Well, Breifne, you're very wrong. When I started out at Glencairn Manor, we were playing junior football back in the late 80s.
That's back in the 1920s or 30s, was it?
No, it's not that far back, but I got plenty of experience playing, and I remember playing against Heslin in a junior final and progressing on. So the 90s was a growth spurt for Manor Hamilton to get where we were in 87, 88, 89 to where we ended up in 99 was a kind of a journey that I think Aughavas went on a very similar path to us around that time. And yeah, you could see Fintan McBrien there, you know, the picture of him this week and the delight on his face at bringing his club, you know, to junior glory. Brought me right back to where I was, you know, as a young player, and the value that, you know, clubs do have a very cyclical life. You know, not all clubs are at the top all the time, and you do have and that's, I think, from a point of view of club growth. And the same has happened Gortletteragh to a degree. I think Gortletteragh, you know, they slipped down, you know, and now they're reviving and coming back. And that's what really, I think that's better for a club nearly in some ways than always been at the pinnacle of everything, because you don't understand, you know, the value of what you're doing really. And these guys, I'm delighted for Gortletteragh. And I suppose on the larger scale, to talk about intermediate final, first of all, you know, for Gortletteragh, there's a bigger picture here. And the picture is Leitrim football. For Jack Heslin, who has been hampered in the last 2 seasons with injury, one of our better young players coming through. I'm sure the next Leitrim manager will be delighted to see Jack Heslin starring in an intermediate final at this stage, and progressing on into a senior championship. Because for one, and Niall Woods himself, who we spoke to a couple of weeks ago here in a great interview, you know, Niall was to the forefront in the game. Like, we need this, and we need our younger players coming up and progressing. And, you know, Gortletteragh are a very, very proud club. And again, as a younger player, they were in senior status nearly all the time when I was a younger player, and playing Gortletteragh was a massive game and a massive. I often remember going up to play Shane Heslin and the boys up there, and you wouldn't get out. You wouldn't get out of Gortletteragh with anything soft. And, you know, it's good. And I suppose there are 2 sides to it. Some clubs have a perennial long-term life at the top. Other clubs have a very, very cyclical existence, which goes up and down and fluctuates with population and teams and, you know, player quality, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Breifne, I suppose that's what fundamentally what the GAA is about. And, you know, you can push it on to the larger scale. You know, my stick would always be beating the drum of, you know, why would we give in to say that we're always going to be a lower tier county or a lower tier? That's nonsense. Like, it's a cyclical thing in everything that we do. It mightn't be as fluent and as quick as other places, other counties, but it does, and same in club football, just because you're having a poor year this year, next year, the year after, doesn't mean that in 5 years' time you can't be back up at the ascendancy. And I think that's something that, every club benefits from. In particular, the likes of Aughavas, who have been senior champions in my time, Gortletteragh have been senior champions in my time, and now you see them progressing back up the ranks again. And sure, there's no more entitled clubs to be up at that level than those two clubs in particular.
Yeah, it's funny though, Cloone are actually still second on the all-time honour list in the county. They've, I think it's 11 or 12 senior championships, way more than the third place on the list. They're right up there, and yet they're still in the junior ranks. It's weird how that works at times.
It is. Well, the thing is, I'd be very friendly down here, obviously, with Declan McCabe, who managed me as a young Leitrim footballer. He's captain of the golf club down here now that I play in, so we meet regularly. But Declan, I think, scored, was it 2-4 or more in the Leitrim senior final for Cloone in 1980. I think that was the last. Some correspondence there recently that popped up in a message back to me, which is very interesting, and backs up your point. That it is cyclical, and I suppose like a Cloone, they'll tell you, well, it's a bit too cyclical because we haven't won anything for so long. But to see Cloone in junior championship, I suppose it's disappointing for a club like Cloone of Cloone stature. But I suppose there's always a challenge there to try and revive and bring it back, because there is a great sense of achievement in taking a club from the bottom to the top. And I know the journey can be very long, for some clubs and some teams, but it's well worth the journey when you get there. It's well worth the hours of sacrifice, and I'm sure Cloone will bounce back at some stage into the ascendancy.
Yeah, well, speaking of Cloone and that journey, let's take a look back at that final. We're speaking to the main people involved in that particular game. We're going to hear from Fintan McBrien, manager of Aughavas, Seamus Sweeney, man of the match, and also Cloone's Enda McGann, their manager for this season. 114-110, the final score in favour of Aughavas, despite Cloone taking a very early, fairly substantial lead into that game. They had opened up a nice little lead, 5-6 points before Aughavas even got on the score sheet, but it wasn't to be for Cloone, and Aughavas won that out. Let's hear from Fintan McBrien to start.
I have with me here joint manager of the Aughavas team, Fintan McBrien. Well done, Fintan, for a start. You got off to a poor start there, but you found yourself 6 or 7 points down. But second quarter you came back into it, and the goal just before half time made a huge difference.
Yeah, I suppose we definitely didn't start well, Seamus. We hadn't prepared to come to be 6 points down after 10 minutes. But, in fairness to our lads, they stuck at it, they dug deep. We knew we were far too good to be 6 points down after 10 minutes. But when we settled into the game, we started to play the type of football that we can play, and that's we kept going after that.
Yeah, and of course the goal just on half time, it was, as I said earlier, it probably changed the team manager's space, half-time speech on both sides.
Yeah, definitely did. I think we were a point down at that stage, and that put us 2 up. It was a crucial score, and it just made our team talk at half-time a lot easier, because we were 6 down, and then to go 2 up then at half-time was a vital goal to get. It was a great move up the pitch.
Yeah, great goal indeed it was. Not nice to pick out players, but the man of the match, Seamus Sweeney, absolutely brilliant performance. And I know there was a lot of good performances on the team, but he was outstanding today.
Yeah, look, I can't say enough about this man. He's been taking us out of a hole for the last, I don't know what it is, 7, 8, 9 years. He's just been tremendous. He's a class act. He was fighting, a couple of years ago. He was probably our most dangerous forward, and he wasn't getting enough help. But this year, we've had 4 or 5 other forwards that can get in there and help him out. But he's an exceptional player, and he's definitely has to be county standard for the new Leitrim manager coming in. I think he's definitely one there for the future.
And after the celebrations now, you'll be turning your thoughts to the intermediate championship. How do you find it? I suppose you've looked at the group already, or have you?
Well, we took a glance, but we definitely didn't.
But you weren't picking them out as definite fixtures.
No, we definitely weren't, because we knew we were going to get a battle here this evening with Cloone.
I know.
A local derby, and we definitely look. We can relax now, and look, we have a league final next Saturday evening in your own club, Seamus, down in Drumkieran. So we'll celebrate today, and the lads will have a good weekend, and we'll be back training on Tuesday night, and we'll be preparing then for Saturday evening and for 2 weeks' time and then intermediate championship.
Right, so look, it's just Barnacool away, the big one then, Carrigallen at home, the local derby. Drumreilly away, you can say another derby, and as again the own teams on Kieran at home. So 4 out of 5 goes through. You fancy your chances.
Yeah, look at there's a couple of local derbies there, and they can go either way. So look, we'll be looking forward to them absolutely. Drumreilly and Carrigallen, 2 local derbies there. There'll be great games, and it'll be great for the lads and great for supporters, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Fintan, and
thanks,
congratulations.
Seamus. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I have with me here Seamus Sweeney. Seamus received the Man of the Match award, and I don't think there was any doubt about it this evening, Seamus, and you might say it was a team victory and all that, but well done on your Man of the Match and your performance. You had a brilliant game. What did it feel like to play out there?
Yeah, it was a struggle at the start, just trying to get used to the heat and that, and we struggled in the first few minutes, but once I got into the game and got used to the heat, like, I was just getting used to it. The score started to come and we just got a bit more comfortable, but geez, it was a tough game.
Yeah, tough game. It was never more than 5 points apart from the early surge by Cloone. Would you been worried after?
I was worried even coming up at the end there, even 4 points. They were hitting long balls in. If a goal went in, another point, realistically we would have got more scores at the end, but look, we had the heart to fight back, and look, we got over the line, and intermediate football is next, and that's where we wanted to be. So if it was either a point or 4 points, whatever it was, we were happy.
Same thing. And as I said to Fintan earlier, the goal just on half time was a huge.
Oh, that was huge. That was a big relief coming in. 2 points up, I think it was. That was just a bit of relief and settled us down, because we were shook at the start, very shook.
So you're looking forward to the intermediate championship now, and
local
derbies thrown in there.
We have a league final next week against Kieran, so our focus next week is back to training, and we want to win as much trophies as we can. So we're going to go hard at that final, and intermediate is where we want to be, because a few young lads coming up, and we are a team rising, and we're looking forward to the test ahead.
Congratulations again on your win and your Man of the Match award.
Cheers.
Thanks, Seamus.
Thank you.
I have with me Enda McGann, manager of Cloone. Tough luck, Enda. You got off to a great start there, 6 or 7 points up, whatever, but Aughavas came into the game in the second quarter, and the goal before half time, and of course you lost 2 players coming up to half time through injury. 2 double blows.
Yeah, the goal was just before half time. That was a killer, like, that put them on the front foot for the start of the second half, but losing my centre back and my corner back, they were huge losses, because Declan at centre back was marking young Sweeney there, and to be fair, he was doing a good job on him, he held him, but then I had to sacrifice a couple of lads that would be probably put into the forward line, into the back line, to shore it up, but when you have tight numbers, you have to make do, so.
That was it. So Aughavas, second half they tended to pull away, but in fairness to you kept you stayed in the game.
We had, and we had a chance there just before the water break in the second half. They knocked it out for 45. That went in, that would have been rattled them for the last 15 minutes, but we didn't get it.
So not sure if you're staying on for this year's junior championship?
Oh yeah.
No, good man. Well,
I am, yeah.
I suppose you have to prepare now for 2021. You'll probably have a few weeks maybe of a break, but to say you have to lose a final to win a final, so you'll be hoping that's the case.
Well, they're lucky enough, we had a chat there after, they have a chance to have 2-3 weeks to fix it.
Yeah.
Most teams have to wait a year to get back to it. So it's up to themselves now. They have 3 weeks to get back on the horse. Out training Tuesday night we will, and we'll go through things, and we'll get them back again, and hopefully in a month's time or 6 weeks' time they'll be back here, and it'll be us, they'll be going out the gate with the cup.
Very good. Well, tough luck again for this evening, and we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully next year you'll be up playing the intermediate championship.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
hopefully
Enda.
we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, of course, it's not all about club football this week. We do have that minor championship clash at Sligo, a Connacht Semi Final no less, to talk about on Friday evening in Markovitz Park. Let's hear from their manager, Adrian Dockery, now. Of course, our final inter-county side of the season start their year in Markovitz Park on Friday night, and it is, of course, our boys minor side who are managed this year by Adrian Dockery, a Roscommon native who's joined us in Leitrim over the last little while. Adrian, I suppose you might as well introduce yourself. Won't be that familiar to a lot of Leitrim GAA heads, but as manager of the minors and also involved with Cloone this year, we can expect to see an awful lot more of you. Tell us a bit about yourself, where you come from, and I suppose how you've ended up as the Leitrim minor manager.
Hi Breifne. Hi Aidan. Thanks for having me on.
How are you doing? You're welcome.
Good, thanks. I suppose there's a girl involved in the story, obviously. I'm a Roscommon native originally. I'm from a small village called Ballinagare. Western Gales have been my home club. So people might know Cathal Craig and Shawnee McDermott. They'd have been two club mates. Married Carmel, and about 4 or 5 years ago there, we relocated to Ballinamore and kind of got involved in the underage there for a year or two, and gave a dig out there one of the years with the seniors as well. So that's been my introduction to Leitrim football, and then this year I got the opportunity to take on the minors, and that's brought me to here today.
Of course, Aidan, no stranger to intercounty minor competition. What would be, I suppose, your interest now, Aidan, in terms of you were the Sligo manager up to recently there, the opposition Leitrim face tomorrow night as we're talking. What's your thoughts on the game coming in from a Sligo point of view?
Well, I'd say, to be honest with you, Breifne, there's nothing between the two teams most times at any grade, to be honest. We probably are propping up the Connacht football at the moment as more adult grades, maybe under 20s and seniors. But one thing about minor football that I found, and I'm sure Adrian finds the same, is that the gap is far less and shouldn't be a gap, really. You're dealing with guys who are 17 years of age, who have no preconceived ideas about other teams or other, they're all playing at the same level in schools football, and they're all the same physically and everything else. So minor football is generally very, very well balanced and very, very tight. And I'd say from tomorrow night's game, Friday night's game in the Marfix Park, I'd say Sligo will win as favourites purely on the fact that they're home. They're up the road, and that might give them maybe a bit of complacency, which sometimes does beset Sligo. A bit of complacency, especially when they're playing Leitrim. But my experience of it was I suppose the difference, Adrian. I suppose you've had a COVID-riddled preparation, which is very hard to deal with. And I try to fathom, how development squad work and all that stuff that goes on in the counties, has been hampered by the COVID strain. It's been a horrendous time. How have you found that yourself? The interaction with the players and the time together. How have you found it?
It's been really different to what you would consider a normal or a regular kind of season. The stuff you take for granted, getting lads together, even in a dressing room, that's gone. And I suppose it's me coming in, first year in, you're trying to get to know lads, and we were trying to do the Zooms. Some lads have Wi-Fi, some lads it's not great Wi-Fi. It was gas, like the difference between, say, those meetings, the COVID, all you were getting a lot of the time was from there up, basically you're getting the nose and the eyes and the COVID here, and then when they get back in a field, you're trying to piece which names go with which guys. But look, it was the same for everyone. I think everyone has dealt with it. Anyone I've talked to, they've dealt with bits and pieces, like say, your pre-season or your early part of the season, even up to now, where bits of COVID popping up here or there. One or two guys might need to go for a test or they're isolating, and you just have to adapt and roll with the punches and not get too bogged down, or you control what you can control. That's the kind of good advice that we've gotten, and that's the way we've approached it. So we've been quite lucky, I suppose. Leitrim has had up until recently, certainly anyway, had a pretty low incidence, which was a huge help because you had a little bit more confidence getting together. And we've guys traveling a huge distance. We've a couple of guys from up in Melvin and Glencar Manor, so it's a long way down to the centre, and you're hoping that you've no control over how many guys go and how many cars, and one car goes down and you could lose 3-4 guys very, very easily. You see what happened to Dubs there in the hurling recently. Everything's going great. Morning of the game, 4 guys down, contingency plans kicking in, and you're probably on about plan E, F, or G at that stage. It's not even plan B. So you just have to be able to adapt and roll with it.
I suppose the only question I'd have for you, Adrian, is that, the development squad system, I suppose you've come in for your year this year as minor manager. Do you feel you'd have missed time with those lads over the years as regards that stuff you're talking about, the bonding and that kind of development, as seeing them developing and coming through, or do you feel you have a good enough handle on it from within the county? Have you seen enough of them in the club scene? And I suppose Leitrim is a tight place. It's probably tighter than most counties. Have you had enough time, do you think, yourself to familiarise yourself with the characters you're dealing with?
I think you'd always like more time, but at some stage you kind of have to get out and play, and that's one of the things we've kind of found. Like, I've leaned pretty heavily on the our academy lads, like the staff wise, like that, GDAs, GPOs, that kind of stuff like that, that have had them and brought them all the way through, and they give you a general handle on it. The flip side, I suppose, that it's a fresh set of eyes as well. So maybe a lad, sometimes you can get 3 of us look at one player, and 3 of us might see 3 completely different things, and that can be a plus or a minus. Like, say, that can be a plus, familiarity coming up through the grades. You might see one at wing back, I might see him as midfielder. I said Breifne might see him as corner back or whatever, corner forward. I said it's you just kind of gotta. That's what we would use the Zoom for a lot as well, like that. Getting used to each other, getting used to each other's voices, kind of even little bits and pieces. Like, we did just simple stuff. We got clips of games and we just put them up and we just had a chat about it, what we saw happening, what we might do a little bit different. We had kind of stuff in nutrition. We had like a cooking session, which was great crack. It was chaos, but it was good crack like that. So you're trying to find a different way to connect, and I think that's something that's hugely important, because I suppose any of the teams, one of the main reasons you're involved in team sport is that connection, that thing you get from being part of a group, part of your own tribe, and whatever way you can do that. I said that was the challenge for us.
Speaking of connection,
sorry, go on, just fine. Yeah.
Well, no, just speaking of connections in terms of, I suppose, supporters looking in from the outside who won't be that familiar with these players, because I suppose traditionally when minor was under 18 rather than under 17 it is today, before they brought in the rules that didn't allow these players to play adult football, lads were playing at 15, 16, 17 up to recently, really. Now these players haven't made any impact at all in adult football, no matter how good they are. We haven't seen that star 15 or 16-year-old coming through and maybe getting a few minutes here or there or whatever with senior sides. Who on this side, I suppose you don't want to pick out individual players, but who have you seen with your involvement with this team that we might see plenty of over the years in Leitrim? Who should we be looking out for on Friday when we're following the game, whether it's on the stream or wherever we might be able to get access to the game?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I suppose, as you say, when they brought in that rule where you couldn't play more than a year ahead of your age grade, it's good on one level from a safety point of view, because there was always that danger of the lighter lad going up to adult football and you get blindsided, you get a hit, and you'd often seen a couple of young guys getting broken up. There is an element kind of missing out of it as well, like that. I know the way it was when we came up in our last year of under 16, we went in with the adult team. And it was just like you were matched off against each other in training, but you were there and you were experiencing, higher standard of football. So then when you went back to minor, it was minor felt easier. Do you know what I mean? Like that, you could push on a little bit more. So the guys are kind of on one level they're missing that, but on another, there's a development side to it where, I remember this guy. I think it was Henk van der Hagen. He spoke at one of the GAA conferences. The guy was over Belgian kind of soccer, and they were kind of the way they redeveloped it and went from number 60 something in the world up to number 1. But anyway, he was kind of saying that he always used Kevin De Bruyne as an example. He was saying Kevin De Bruyne didn't show anything at all. He says he was barely hanging in at the tail end of their squads until he was about 16, and then it just clicked for him. So I suppose what we have in Leitrim is you don't have that kind of 60 or 70 guys that you need to look at in Mayo or Galway. Do you know what I mean? Like the academy guys that have taken these players, they know them all the way up. So we know who we have, and you have to spend time with them, and you have to stay with them and see where that takes you. And some of those guys, maybe they'll develop early, maybe they'll play early for their clubs, and some guys might need another 2 or 3 years. And that's the nature of it. I said just the different levels that the speed the guys develop at. But we would be fairly hopeful. There's a good few lads here. We'd be pretty hopeful that they'll be transitioning pretty quickly into the clubs. So yeah,
I love how you mentioned that without naming a single name. Congratulations. Well,
I know. He's better safe than sorry, Breifne, on that one though. In all fairness,
No, I'm fully aware of actually.
That was a horrible question to ask any manager before a big game.
What's that? The bit of advice? Never answer. Was it? Never answer the question they ask you. Answer the question you wish they'd asked you. You know, that's
Adrian,
I had to ask.
With the wife from Ballinamore, Adrian, you should have no problem with that skill.
My mother's from Ballinamore. Be careful now.
Saying nothing when you're saying nothing, or saying everything.
Absolutely.
But I suppose, on a more serious note, I suppose the question, or the thing that strikes me, and when I was looking after Sligo 6 years ago, I made a comment on it that I think John Connolly put on the front of the Leitrim Observer the following day, was that the structure of the competition, unfortunately, from a COVID point of view, is very harsh. Like, you're in the Marfix Park on Friday night, and if you lose, you're done, and that's very harsh for young lads developing. And I would have had a huge gripe with that. Although we were lucky enough to get to a Connacht Final that year, you know, we scraped through Carrick and scraped through Roscommon. But the point was, you know, you had no football. You know, if you lost your first game, you were gone, and you had no chance to develop a good bunch of young lads and keep them going and get them more football. But I think at least that had changed. But unfortunately, with COVID now, it's changed back. So I suppose that's something that I kind of feel sorry for both teams on Friday night, that whoever doesn't come through it is done for the year. You know,
it is that. Look, there's no twist about that. Is a tough one, and the normal kind of, you know, Connacht minor leagues and things like that we're going where you're getting games is gone, and even like say challenge games, like say. I think our own was we had a couple of games, we had a few challenge games, and then there was a bit of a gap where Leinster and Ulster were going. It was a bit harder to get challenge games, so we ran a couple of rounds of club games, which was great because it got made sure everyone in the squad was playing a minimum of 3 games. Gave us an opportunity to go and look at these guys playing against their peers, which was great. And then you come out of that, but and then you're talking about COVID as well, like that. We had a challenge or 2 lined up that got pulled for different bits and pieces like that. So you're kind of. And then you're rolling into a do or die championship game. Now, look, it's the same kind of for everyone. It's there's pluses and minuses to it. I suppose from a selfish point of view, and go back to not even counting, going for a club setup. The best club system I think I played in was open draw, and there was a losers group. So you lost your first round game, you were into the losers group, and then the winner of the losers group popped up in as one of the semi-finalists. And I thought that was a great system. It was hardcore. You still had your championship. It was still like you had to be up for every game, where you didn't have necessarily not meaningless games, but you know, you can get to a stage where a team is qualified. And I suppose I'm talking about club here as well, like that. We have a lot of group championship games. By the time you're getting to game 4 and 5, you're kind of going, okay, we know we're qualified here. You know, you can mind a couple of guys. I think there's an element of there's something special about win or go home. And it is harsh, but like the reward is all the greater if you can get across the line. You know, it makes it that bit more special.
You're talking to a relic here. I played in the first qualifier ever played in 2001 down in Casement Park, and I think the report after the game was, I'm not sure, was it John Connolly or was it the Irish News reported that they never saw 2 teams trying to lose a game as hard. You know, but we were at the tail end of the champ. You know, it was horrible stuff, and it was brand new, and nobody wanted to be playing on in a meaningless, you know, kind of backdoor system. But anyways, long story short, I played all the time in the knockout championship, which I thought was fantastic because, you know, it does bring that kind of extra fervor to the whole thing. And you know, when you get across the line, then it's you know, I'd agree with you, Adrian, on from that point of view. But I suppose from the young lads' development point of view, you know, maybe at the underage, minor age, it's probably good to have something that will keep them playing.
It is
against their peers for longer, you know.
If you had a couple of kind of you know, the equivalent of FBD League or something like that, where you had something at that age grade where you're guaranteed, you know, 3, 4, 5 games together, you know, where you can really start to give lads a chance to find their feet, because that's a big thing as well. Like that every club is great. Don't get me wrong. I said, but it's a step up to county again like that, and you're trying to help these fellas. You know, there's very few guys that swim straight away. Do you know what I mean? Like that. There's an element of, oh man, this is way faster. You know, the hits are harder, everything's quicker. And like, if you can give guys 3, 4, 5 games, you know, to get their feet under them and they're ready to thrive in that environment. But as you say, the knockout kind of, the knockout makes that quite difficult.
And plus, one other point, Adrian, is they're a year younger. Like at 18 years of age, that year does make a big difference to those kids. And I've seen it myself. It was minor. It was 18 when I was there. And there's a difference in that year, and you're bringing in kids at 16, 17. And you're right. They have to find their feet before they can actually walk, and
even,
it's a huge cauldron.
It is. And then I suppose, like the way I kind of looked at it is they've come into us, that they're coming from kid football basically up to under 15. And by the time they leave us, they're going to be going into men's football, adult football.
Mm-hmm.
So you have them right in that middle spot there like that. And that year younger, like, so when they leave, there is that year or so where they're going to their clubs, or even the 3 years of eligibility then for the 20s. So it's there's a kind of a flux year there like that, and it's kind of you're always hoping that the guys might make that progression earlier, but that they don't get left behind or lost along the way. But it's look at, as I said, the only thing is it's where it has come in handy was, because I suppose I've seen this on a different side, which I was with the 21s team one time, and you were calling guys and you were seeing could they come up, what I mean, like that would be interested to come in. And I think I made phone calls to 3 or 4 lads who went on to play senior into county football in the few years that followed. But the time I rang them, I said, no, listen, thanks very much, but I have 2 years of eligibility left after this year, and I made a Hames of the leaving last year, so I'm just going to focus on getting the leaving and repeating it. So I can see where they're coming from. We had about, I think, 5 lads doing the leaving cert this year, so the majority of them are going to go into leaving cert next year, because it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to carry both. So on that side of it, I suppose you're losing something, but you're gaining something as well, and that's the nature of these moves.
Yeah, you do tend to gain that bit of focus, maybe that lads who just that year below leaving cert. I suppose just to wrap up, we are running out of time with you, Adrian. Thanks so much for making yourself available. Expectations for Friday night. Leitrim at minor level haven't had the best luck in recent, I'm going to say decades, because I think I'm open to correction here, but I think it's just one win in the best part of 20 years, maybe 18, 19 years. So history isn't on your side. What can we expect looking in? What's your expectation? What are the team expecting? Is victory realistic on Friday night?
Well, the way I kind of look at it is, and this is something I've always kind of brought with my coaching. It's very, very difficult to control outcomes. You can go in and you can say, yes, we're going to win this game, or we're not going to win this game, or whatever it might be like that. I said, but very, very difficult to absolutely guarantee victory. You've seen Kerry against Cork last year. Everyone in the country had picked Kerry to win that game. And then I think anyone who was watching that game that was a neutral was standing up and roaring right at the end when they got that goal. So the way that we have been projecting it is there's an expectation that these lads will represent their county well, and themselves and their families and their clubs, and that they will put their best foot forward, and that they will leave it out there, every ounce of it. And if we get that from these lads, and I expect that from them, I think the result will take care of itself. And whatever way it goes at that stage, I think everyone can be, and especially the lads, that's the important bit, that they will be extremely proud of themselves and the effort they put forward. But it's something, I suppose, as an outsider, you said of a blow-in, I definitely get it. It's something I don't necessarily understand. There's a little bit of it, different times you hear kind of whatever in shops and bits and pieces like that, where there's a small bit of an inferiority complex. And you're kind of going, like, there's a centre of excellence there. Any challenge game we've played or any team come down to us, they're like, geez, this is pretty amazing. We don't have this in our county. I've had that from 4 or 5 counties coming down. There's lots of stuff that we're doing well in Leitrim that aren't being done in other places. And I don't subscribe to or buy into that thing that you should, because someone is from somewhere else. It's always tempting. You think everyone else is doing it better. You always think, you look across the border, geez, them lads are doing it amazing like that. I can guarantee you, from being the other side of the border and working with lads from different counties like that, each county has its own strengths and weaknesses, and you always think someone else is doing it better, but it's some things to do better, but a lot of stuff they don't. So our confidence is in ourselves and within our own group, and we're going to control what we can control. And if we can bring that, we discussed there about effort levels and I kind of meeting our own standards that we've set ourselves, we'll see what it brings on Friday night.
Well, my parting comment to you, Adrian, and thanks very much for coming on, would be the expectation of a county is on your shoulders. We've had a shockingly poor year, I'm afraid, at under 20 and senior level. Although it's been short, it's been poor. So I suppose the one thing I would say to my players always is kind of, look at what you can do in affecting people's lives. And I suppose you lads on Friday night have that power in your hands on Friday night to put Leitrim in a Connacht minor final, which would be an absolutely fantastic achievement, and be looking forward to a Connacht final would be fantastic. So look, the very best of luck, genuinely. And
thanks very much.
Really
Appreciate that.
For all our sake, we can get across the line.
Great stuff.
I think the whole county will be cheering you on Friday night. So best of luck, Adrian, to you and your team, and we shall chat to you maybe hopefully celebrating a victory and a place in the Connacht final in due course.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, lads.
And finally on the show this week, we might as well, when we have you, Aidan, take a little look forward a week or so to the Senior Football Championship. Of course, the fixtures came out this week. We had the draw last week, fixtures this week. The actual action starts in just 8 days' time. What are your thoughts on the draw so far? Anyone stand out to you as potential champions at this early stage?
Oh, well, obviously Mohill are the outstanding team, but I suppose the gap is closed. The league final last weekend, you can say the league is irrelevant. It's not that irrelevant when you're a week out from the championship. I think the fact that Ballinamore are showing some teeth at this stage is good. Mohill are obviously the outstanding team still in the championship, and the team that everyone will have to beat, to get across the line. But, I looked at the groups, you would tend to say that Group 1 was the tougher group. But when you look on it in balance afterwards, again, you're looking at it and you're kind of saying, well, that's a little bit flawed. You have Mohill, Ballinamore, and the traditionalist Aughavas in the same side. Aughavas' form hasn't been great to date, but they are a championship team. They can pull it out. They do have the quality of player, Mohill and Ballinamore. So I suppose the fact that it goes to quarterfinals, Breifne,
I don't think you can finish that group without talking about Fina either, to be fair, on that side of the draw. They all fancy themselves semi-finals last year.
Well, they will. Well, Fina, I suppose, would see themselves as having underachieved in recent seasons. They with the O'Rourke's and Donald Rain and those caliber of player in their ranks, the expectation on Fina was probably, they haven't matched it yet. That's, I suppose, absolutely not ruling them out of the competition and not ruling them out of the frame at all. But Fina have a challenge to themselves now. I know last year they were without Ryan. Huge loss to lose a player of that level. In any year. But a fit Ryan and Fina, I suppose, all point in the one direction. They are contenders. To certainly cause trouble. And what I would say, where I was going was, with the quarterfinal situation in the championship, it doesn't really matter where you finish up in your group. It's not really, okay, you can say the top team plays the bottom team far side. In my experience, I've been involved in it for a couple of years. I don't think it matters an awful lot where you end up in your group. Just get qualified, get some quality out of the games you're playing. And from that point of view, Fina have great opportunity, to be playing Ballinamore and Mohill, who would probably be, alongside Carrick, as the three teams you'd be looking at as probably the favourites in the championship. Manor, I haven't been talking to Sean in a little while now, but Manor are probably under a little bit of pressure this year in the fact that they're probably losing some of their older players who have contributed so much to them. They're probably in that transition phase finally this year, it looks like. Can Manor regenerate and come back with it's hard to see it. Leitrim GAA are a rejuvenated club, coming very, very strong at senior level now. Melvin Gales, I suppose, have kind of, I suppose, maybe flattered to deceive in the last couple of seasons. Superb quality around the place, and this year I know they've lost Emlyn to us in St Mary's, but the quality is still there. It's very hard to call Breifne at this stage, but you'd have to look at Mohill, Ballinamore, and St Mary's as probably the three primaries. And I said the likes of Fina, Aughavas will certainly have a say. The big one for me is my old mate Martin Mcgowan is in an Alan Gales and starting at the bottom, and regenerating the club and regenerating everything in it. And it's very interesting to see the amount of work that Martin, has got done this season, in the limited time available to him. Alan Gale's obviously a really, really proud senior club. And I know that's part of Martin's remit going in there, is to regenerate that kind of bring them back to where they were in the 90s and so on and so forth. But I think that's an interesting one to watch. Alan Gale's, like that bottom spot there becomes, that's an achievement, is to stay out of that bottom spot in your group and try and get into a quarterfinal of a senior championship. So, to call the other side of it, Gortletteragh are coming on a bounce from the intermediate championship. That has to be beneficial to them. It has to give them something, because they would have been training very, very hard for that senior intermediate final. They would be in a good place as regards, they've won it. There's a positivity around the place, whereas other teams in there don't have any of that. They've played a couple of meaningless league matches, to a large extent, to bring them to championship. So I know, and now the championship starting next weekend, there's very little time for challenge games and so on and so forth. So yeah, look at you can't look past Mohill, Ballinamore and St Mary's going on last season. St Mary's problem, I suppose, is to kind of do it again. Can they repeat with their young team and do it? And of course, you'll be very familiar with the interesting battle of St Mary's and Leitrim GAA. That's a very interesting battle in that side of the draw. There's some great rivalries in it. Obviously you have Mallow Melvin Gales in there as well as another huge local rivalry. Which always brings a different result than you expect. Local rivalries tend to do that. Same with Ballinamore, Aughavas. Ballinamore at the minute might be a little bit in the ascendancy there, but you put them into a championship match together, it levels out all that stuff, and it makes the game nearly, it brings the game back to a parity again. Mohill just seemed to be ticking a little better. Chat with Liam Keenan, a couple of weeks ago. They're very focused on what they're doing, I'd imagine, in Mohill, and I think they have a very, very. We spoke Danny Beck earlier on here in the show a few weeks ago. You can see the confidence oozing out of Danny. He knows they have the numbers. He knows they have the depth of panel required to go to the well and pull out players that would back up, whereas other clubs at the minute might be struggling with that kind of numbers. No matter how much they might be struggling, like how well they might be struggling with the depth of their panels at the minute, and that's probably something in championship. You tend to find that the teams that have the deeper panel tend to get across the line more, because you can sustain the injuries and sustain the quality and keep the quality up. Whereas if you're in a smaller group, where you're selecting from a smaller group, injuries can play a huge role in your championship. Obviously this year COVID is another huge obstacle in the way of everybody, and we're all watching it like a hawk, but you can only watch it so much. And I'm even saying to my guys down here, we might lose the championship to a team in Sligo, but we might lose the championship to COVID. And that's a very hard reality for every club. It's a very harsh reality for every club. Like just one bad week, and you could lose several players for a game, and there's all these little things playing off. But on paper, on par for the course, every player available, Mohill will be shockingly hard to beat.
I think, and Adrian talked about it earlier, but he could lose 4 players because one person contracts COVID or one person's close contact. He could have a carload gone, and all of a sudden you're on plan. I think he said E, G, and F, or E, F, and G, and that's just the reality of it. We live in that kind of an uncertainty now, everything in our lives. So here's hoping that doesn't affect. We like to see these things settled on the pitch. It's funny, you talked about my knowledge of Leitrim GAA and St Mary's. Honestly, to be honest, I don't really know. I haven't been involved in either club in a long time, really, at the coalface. My first game, I played for both clubs, funny enough, and both of my first games were against the other club. So Leitrim GAA, I played my first game against St Mary's, and vice versa. 2 or 3 years later, St Mary's back playing. My first game was against Leitrim GAA. But it's a horse of a different animal now. Horse of different colour now, because that was Leitrim GAA's first team at the time. It was Carrick's 4th. This is first versus first. This is not the same as when I was involved back in the day. And I wouldn't have got anywhere. I wouldn't have got within an ass's roar of either team at any stage in my career. I was never quite at your level or anyone else's level that's playing in the senior championship. But in terms of this, it's level pegging. And I think Leitrim Gaels have the bragging rights in league games and stuff up to this, but it's their first meeting in the championship. And I suppose two clubs that 25 years ago were effectively the same parish, and now they're playing against each other. I know a lot of people have a bit of animosity still 24, 25 years later. It comes out every now and again. To me, I just think it's great that it means that there's lads in the area of that ability, and to have two teams at senior level for the one region is a huge achievement. It does bring up a fair bit of rivalry though, and I know I'm going to get stick from both sides for not taking a side on that one. But listen, I think it's great, and I think it's great to see teams. You mentioned Aughavas and yourselves coming through in the 80s and 90s. And I think that's been the same for Leitrim Gaels. They were junior not that long ago. So I think it is very cyclical. But I think the difference and the similarities in all of those stories is work being put in at the grassroots. And Leitrim Gaels have done that over the last 15 years, and they're seeing the benefit of it now. You saw it back in the day when you really invested in those youngsters coming through. And it doesn't have to be money investment. Time and energy and commitment and dedication and inspiration is every bit as valuable as what comes out of the bank account into those players as well. And we can maybe learn that lesson at county level too. And hopefully our minors will do exactly that tomorrow night. Aidan, that's pretty much all we've got time for this week. Neck on the block, in one word, intermediate championship. Who do you think is going to be following Gortletteragh into the senior championship in a couple of weeks' time?
Very hard to put a call on it. It's a very evenly balanced championship. Breifne, like Aughavas are coming. It's too early, out of junior football to progress through intermediate football. Although Fintan will have them hopping, they're probably not at the quality required yet. Drumreilly are always going to be, I know their key players are probably at an age now where they're moving through as well. And the more the better. Hamilton is a similar type of scenario. The John McGowans and Maguires and these lads are just, they've given massive service. But, Kiltubbard, funny, you look at them there and you kind of go, there's lots of teams there, Breifne, that have senior championships and, pedigree, and you just don't know in championship football. You just don't know, particularly in a year like this when, preparations have been hampered and been shorter and, players might be home. It's just very hard to tell, can Aughavas 3 or 4 years ago were certainly, senior standard, and David Casey was there and putting them in the frame. And I remember they beating us up there in a league match in Division 1 back in 2016 or 17. And, all these teams have the players, they have the players. And I suppose it's kind of on the day and you're looking at the group. The one thing I would say about the championship is it opens the door for a long time for every team. So you have 4 decent matches to get you at championship pitch. And then the quarterfinal stage is all about form, injuries, head on the block. I couldn't put a guess on it. It'd be a random guess based on, maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago of experience. But like traditionalists always tend to jump out in championships, and your Aughavas and Rileys and these teams, vast coming from way back. What could they bring to an intermediate championship? Could bring quite a bit, I'd imagine. I'd be interested to see what Fintan's doing in the background. Can we put a few bob on them?
The longest one-word answer in the history of sports commentary. Aidan,
I don't have one answer.
As ever, we have ran way over time. Thank you so much to Adrian Dockery. The best luck to him and his minors tomorrow night as we're recording this, probably tonight as you're listening to this on the Leitrim GAA podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. To Aidan Rooney, who's joined me for the last hour or so, thank you so much. I've been Breifne Earley. I will chat to you again next week. Talk to you then.